Troublemaker.
But he's going We have like 6 people
None of
that
this
are ready
is
to make a
present.
motion, I think.
That's all.
You call it him.
But not me.
I hereby call this meeting of Norwood City Council to order. Please rise for the prayer and pledge of allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in this council chamber. We pray for thy divine guidance, that we may do all things well, according to thy holy will. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Williams, please call.
Mr. Geraci.
Here.
Mr. DiNardo.
Here?
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Welch is also here.
Oh, I apologize.
I was going to say I only heard people.
I thought I said it.
We have 5 members present, 2 absent. Moving on to amendment of agenda, we have a letter from the City of Cincinnati regarding the CRA. We'd like to add to the agenda tonight. That's the only item that I had.
Thank you much.
Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we amend the agenda as stated.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. May I have a second? Mr. DiNardo.
I'd actually like to make a motion to make another amendment, if that's okay.
Well, actually, I don't think we have to do another amendment. We can just make, well, if you want to do it now, we make a motion.
Yes. I'd like to table the third reading for the Linden Point
To the June 8th meeting.
I think June 8th would be the better one.
Mr. Ward.
The motion to table cannot be as part of the motion to amend the agenda. We do it when we get to when we come to that item as we're going through the agenda, then it would be then we make a motion to table
That's
it.
what I thought.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks for the clarification.
So the motion is by Mr. Braden and second by Mr. DiNardo to amend the agenda. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yep.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, ma'am.
All members present, voting aye. Motion passes. Item F, minutes of previous meeting, May 11th, 2021. Mr. Braden.
Motion that we accept the minutes as written.
Motion by Mr. Braden. Mr. Thompson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, ma'am.
All members present, voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item G, public hearing. I hereby call this public hearing to order. The public hearing approving a zone change from the heavy manufacturing M2 use classification zoning district to the central business district use classification zoning district for the parcels identified by the Hamilton County Auditor as 2699 Edmondson Road, parcel 651-0041-0115-00 and 651-0041-031-00, and also approving a zone change from the heavy manufacturing M2 use classification zoning district to the general business district use classification zoning district for the parcel identified by the Hamilton County Auditor as 2692 Madison Road, parcel 651-0041-0228-00. Do we have anyone that would like to come forward and speak for this item? Do we have anyone that would like to come forward to speak against the measure? If not, then I hereby close this public hearing. Moving on to requests to address council. Mayor Schneider, would you like to recognize the...
I would. I actually would like to call Phil Craby, who's our Recreation Director, and Stephanie Downs, if you would step forward also. And they can explain, I just wanted to take a minute at the beginning of the council meeting for them to sort of explain something that was fun and went on in the city, and then what the results of that were. So take it away, Phil.
Yeah, thank you. So we basically want to announce our new logo for the Recreation Department. You can see it on the screen. I want to introduce Stephanie Downs from our Recreation Task Force. She's going to speak for a minute about what our task force is for recreation, some of the things that we've done so far, as well as award the winner of our logo design contest to our recipient.
Yay. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Mayor Schneider. I am Stephanie Downs. I'm part of the Mayor's Recreation Task Force. There's been some questions about what the task force is, where did it come from, and it's about 10 or 12 people from all ages who either work or live in Norwood. We were assembled several months ago to start looking at reopening recreation in Norwood. We've been couple years without, and of course with COVID, that made it all go south as well. So we've been meeting every other Saturday morning for quite some time, and some of the things that we've accomplished is we hired an executive director for recreation. If you haven't met Phil, I urge everybody to call him up and meet him for lunch and give him your thoughts and dreams about recreation. He wants to fulfill everyone's needs, right?
Yes.
Right. And so he is assembling a staff. He's bringing on a program manager, an office manager, and a pool manager. And the pool manager will again be Tanya Woodruff, that a lot of you know from Waterworks, with her handful of the regular lifeguards. Another thing our task force accomplished is we have surveyed Norwood and just found out what people are interested in the recreation kind of becoming and having and doing. We also have cleared out the YMCA. Many of you know the city was able to buy the Y for $1. There's going to be some dollars added to that. It wasn't a perfect building for $1, but so we cleared out the Y, and that's getting ready to move forward. You'll hear more as time goes by. Phil will have oversight of the Y, which is now called the Norwood Rec Building, the community center, the Waterworks, and the parks. And we're starting now with a soft open for recreation. This Friday, Waterworks opens, and starting June 4th, next Friday, there's going to be fun at Victory Park. We're calling it Fridays on the Lawn at Victory Park. Every single Friday night from now, June 4th, until August 20th, when football starts, there will be different kinds of parties. There will be concerts, there will be food truck rallies, movie nights. The police are helping us put on some movie nights. Okay, and that brings me to our most recent accomplishment is we ran a citywide logo contest. We had 13 entries, all ages. We had school-age kids up through adults, people who are study the arts, people who are just interested in recreation, people who like to just mess with crayons and colored pencils. We had it all. We thought they were all so good that what we've decided to do is we're going to do an 8x10 framed picture of every logo that came in, and it's going to be on the wall at the new rec center. So we're super excited to just be able to share the artwork from anybody in the city who participated. So that brings us to our winner. And the way we did this is we had our newly formed art board select out of the 13, they narrowed it down to 3. And then our recreation center, our recreation task force voted for the 1. And so the 1 is Miss Ashley Berady. Here she is. We're very proud of her. Some of us in the task force put together some dollars for her. We have an award of $300 for Ashley. And Congratulations, Ashley. One more thing I wanted to share. We have different iterations of this logo, so if you see it somewhere and the icons are below or to the right or to the left, it's all Ashley's work. Did you want to share anything, Ashley?
Sure. I just want to say thank you to everyone for holding the contest, and thanks to the new task force and the art board. I hope you guys enjoy the logo, and it excites Norwood for this summer with their Fridays on the Lawn. So, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Maria's.
I'm sorry, can you spell your last name for me, please?
Spell my last name?
Yeah.
Please.
It's Baradi. It's spelled B as in boy, A-R-A-D like in David, I-H-I.
Thank you so much.
Questions? No? What? You can, I guess, if you want to inquire.
Forget it then.
Thank you very much.
Oh, did you have a question?
No, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to requests to address council. We have several this evening. When I call your name, please come forward, state your name, address, and the subject matter, and remember that you have 5 minutes. The first person is Amy Wolfenbarger.
Hi, Amy Wolfenbarger. Is it working? Can you hear me? 5406 Carthage Avenue. I actually marked my paper wrong. I am speaking on an agenda item tonight, and it has to do with the resolution for the Stoney's liquor license. Unfortunately, I support your resolution tonight. I have lived on Carthage Avenue now for about 6 years. When I initially moved in, yes, there was a bar there, but that does not take away my right as a homeowner or a renter in the community to peace and quiet in my community. At the time I moved there, we had a nuisance ordinance on the books as well. So the assumption would be, well, if it gets that out of control, there's a nuisance ordinance on the books. We can reach out to the city, try to take care of things. Unfortunately, when it was Schaefer's Tavern, we did not have those issues. You could call Schaefer's Tavern and say, hey, it's a little bit loud tonight, can you turn it down? And they would turn it down. If there were issues with people smoking cannabis outside, Schaefer's, the owner of Schaefer's Tavern, would nicely ask those folks to move it along to a different property, leave the area, and we all know that I am a supporter of legal cannabis, so, but however, Schaefer's Tavern operated that way. They were friends to the community. If we had issues with things that happened there, they took it upon themselves to handle that. Unfortunately, that has not been the experience with Stoney's. I've gone in on numerous attempts and have spoken with her. Unfortunately, without effect. I have, over the couple years, picked up tons of trash off the street. Initially, after the first 4 or 5 times, I would sit it on their stoop. Then they would keep it clean for a couple days and then right back at it again. I believe last summer, I think I contacted Counsel with pictures. I have seen solo cups full of alcoholic beverages sitting on the curbs on our street. We have children last year that were walking to Norwood View that would pass by these alcoholic beverages just sitting right there on the curbside. Constant trash being picked up. Liquor bottles are broken. Liquor bottles are thrown in my driveway. I'm not as affected by the music coming from the bar as some of my other neighbors. However, I am very much affected by the customers who patronize the bar. And they come up and down the street. There's loud cars a lot of times, very loud bass. My windows rattle. My glass light fixtures inside my home rattle. To drive by is one thing. To pull up in front of an establishment and listen to the end of the song, which we're all guilty of, but with your bass booming like that while my house vibrating is completely inappropriate. The bar owner should be able to speak with their customers, have them respect the community a little bit better. I mean, I'm all about small business. I'm very much about female-owned small business. But if you're not going to respect the community within which you have a business, then it makes it difficult to be a member of the community. So we all live here. We've lived here. I have neighbors that have lived here a lot longer than I have. It's a great little area there. We all get along really, really well. We shouldn't have to be forced to leave our homes because of people that essentially are coming, for the most part, to visit our neighborhood. All we ask is that they be good neighbors. So tonight I'm just here to thank you for your time and once again say that I support the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Corey Franklin.
Good evening. My name is Corey Franklin. I live at 5410 Carthage Avenue. I'm relatively new to the area. I moved in about 3 years prior to Stoney's being open. I have a lot of similar complaints to, my community and my neighborhood. I'm sick of, every day coming home and having to pick up glass out of the road, trash, cigarettes, and in my yard. I also have a couple complaints about the loitering. They hang out till 4 or 5 a.m. I have a kid, so it stirs up the kid and the dog in the middle of the night. Makes it hard to keep them on a schedule. I also ran into many issues where they've parked and blocked my driveway when they try to parallel park in there. So I've had the owner of Stoney's tell me to call her, but she never seems to resolve any of the issues when I do. I have had to call the police. I've had friends that didn't really feel safe leaving at midnight because there's people hanging out in front of my yard. And for that, I would just like to say I fully support the resolution to Stoney's Pub. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mike Wedding and Deborah Wedding.
Hi, I'm Mike Wedding.
And I'm Deborah Wedding. I better put my glasses on so I can read this. We live at 5402 Carthage Avenue, next to Stoney's Pub. We have lived in our home for 47 years, and yes, we knew there was a bar next door when we moved here. My grandparents, the Zentmeyers, lived in our home and owned Zentmeyer's grocery store across the street from the bar. During all these years, Schaefer's Tavern was a friendly place to go, and there were no problems for the neighbors. Now our neighbors and us regularly have to call the police to come to Stoney's. Since she bought the bar, our neighborhood has drastically changed. Before she started running the bar, our neighborhood was a peaceful place. Norwood View School is less than 500 feet from the bar, and children walk from their homes to and from Norwood View School. Many of the homes in our neighborhood do not have driveways, and they must park their cars on the street. Now neighbors are forced to park a block or more away from their homes because her patrons take up these parking spaces. When those spaces are gone, they park in crosswalks in front of fire hydrants and blocked driveways. She is trying to take a very small neighborhood tavern and turn it into a nightclub. This property is only 34 feet by 71 feet. This includes the building in the backyard. The front and side of the building is directly on the public sidewalk. She continually has extremely loud music playing inside of the bar. The bass is so loud, it can be heard outside the building, and she opens the doors and the loud music pours out into the neighborhood. Keep in mind that the neighbors have children who have to go to school in the morning and they can't sleep because of all the noise. She must make patrons that smoke go outside, but others go outside with them. Their laughing and talking is extremely loud, and they use very vulgar language. At times, the bar stays open later than the legally allowed time, and sometimes until 4 a.m. Now she has decided to open up her small backyard area, which borders the public sidewalk. She allows them to sit at one table with 4 chairs, and the others stand, and she serves them alcohol and food outside. We have contacted the health department about this, and we're told that this is not allowed, but nothing has been done about this as of now. Because of the lack of supervision by her, neighbors now have to clean up her garbage scattered through the neighborhood by her patrons. This is broken beer and whiskey bottles and food containers on our sidewalks and in our yards from her patrons. The end of March, an old toilet appeared in the backyard with all her recycling and garbage cans. This is when we started seeing many men and one woman come out into the backyard and urinate against the corner of the building at all times during the day and night. At this time, the toilet is still sitting in the backyard, and patrons are still urinating outside. Anyone who is walking down the public sidewalk with their children and walking their dogs can plainly see and hear what is going on back there. It is illegal for her to be allowing her patrons to drink alcohol outside of the bar because she does not have the license to do so. There has to be a physical barrier installed so that the small backyard would be separated from the sidewalk. When the police respond and go to any of the doors to try to enter the bar, all doors are locked, which is against fire code. We have been told this numerous times by police officers we have talked to right after they have been there. We have a Ring camera installed on the side of our home because we have an in-ground pool in our backyard, and we monitor it so no one gets over our fence. Because of this, our camera picks up a portion of their backyard because there is only 5 feet between our home and the bar. Therefore, we have videos of what occurs in the backyard of the bar. There have been 59 noise complaints in 25 months and many citations. We have been to mayor's court twice because of this situation. I thought she would be here tonight. I don't believe she is, to ask that you renew her liquor license. That's what I thought would happen. But we are here tonight to plead that you vote not to renew her liquor license for the sake of our neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Wedding. Next request to address council is Tyler Awesome.
Good evening, guys. My name is Tyler Alsip. I live at 2072 Worth Avenue. I'm here in relation to the resolution for Stoney's liquor license, and I'm against the renewal of their liquor license. In the last 3 years since I moved in, things have gotten progressively more aggressive with the behavior of her patrons in her bar. Recently, we've had violence, including fist fighting, regular verbal altercations right outside my house, threats of gun violence regularly now, gunshots that we reported to the police on February of 2020. I've had blocked driveways. I've had urination on my front porch furniture. We've also had urination within the neighborhood itself. Trash being thrown on the street and in my yard, frequently picking that up. And then also, when we confront the patrons as they're leaving the bar, racial slurs, hate speech, they're being hurled toward our neighbors. These incidents have resulted in at least 20 police reports from my family alone since the opening of Stoney's. Frankly, as a member of the community, somebody that works in the community and coaches, I think that this bar contributes nothing to our community except for just a nuisance. And so that's why I support not renewing Stoney's liquor license.
Thank you. Next request, Jennifer Shepard.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Shepard. I live at 5347 Globe Avenue. I am nearly a whole block away from Stoney's Pub. Stoney's Pub routinely, as I'm sure you've heard, and I can't say it better than some of these, the noise, obviously the noise from the thumping music from the establishment to the cars parked outside to the patrons who stand in the street and scream at each other from a block away, who have conversations that are so loud they should be standing in my living room. I have small children. They wake up my children every single night. And when you have small children who are woken up every single night, you all know that that's not any fun for any of us to have to deal with. The parking is always a nuisance. We have parking and no parking zones in front of fire hydrants. And I don't know about you, but if you had someone parked in front of the fire hydrant that was the closest to your house in the event of an emergency, that's kind of scary. Those are precious seconds that can be wasted trying to handle the street. My children love to pick up trash. We take pride in our neighborhood. They pick up the trash and throw it in the trash can that is right on the corner of Carthage and Cathedral. And I can't let them pick it up because obviously that's pretty disgusting. Patrons going to and from the bar, urinating. We have caught people urinating on our vehicles, on the vehicles that belong to teenagers in the neighborhood, on the side of garages. They sneak between houses and urinate down people's driveways. When they've been confronted about this, they get very combative. They don't have any problem with this. They seem to have no shame. It's routine for them to get out of their car and urinate on the sidewalk. And it's even more fun when your 3-year-old at 1 o'clock in the morning peeks out the window because he's wide awake and catches someone peeing on a car. It's absolutely disgusting. It's nothing I want my children seeing. It's not how I want them to grow up remembering Norwood. The female owner routinely comes out of the bar to verbally assault the residents. No resident can confront her or any of her patrons, or we are called every name in the book. She is absolutely not a kind participant in the neighborhood. She has no vested interest in maintaining Norwood as a calm, quiet, peaceful community. She is just there for her bar. I understand that. I 100% respect that there is a bar on that. I've lived here for 15 years. There was a bar there when I moved in. I have no problem with there being a bar on that corner. Support there being a bar on the corner. We have frequented that bar when it was Schaefer's. I'm okay with that. The problem I have is how this particular bar is run. She has made no effort to clean it up. She has made no effort to control her patrons. In her eyes, what happens outside of her bar is not her problem. The only other thing I would like to add that I think was brought up previously was they had requested an extension of their liquor license to go longer into the night. The school board voted no on that. The school board said no. They are 500 feet from an elementary school. We are a densely populated residential community. This is not a place for a nightclub. I 100% support this woman having a business somewhere else. Happy for her to have her bar. This is just not the location for it. My neighbor said it best, and I hope I speak best for the ones who couldn't be present for graduations and various other events that were already happening tonight. We urge you to please vote not to renew their liquor license. This place has to go somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Next request to address council, Renee Durker.
I'm Renee Durker. My address is 4110 Floral Avenue.
I'm here tonight to implore you to enact an ordinance banning the use of mosquito spray services on residential properties in the city. I've been a master gardener volunteer with OSU's Hamilton County Extension for nearly 20 years. One of the hallmarks of MGV's training has to do with something called Integrated Pest Management, or IPM for short. In Integrated Pest Management, pests in the garden and landscape are dealt with using the least toxic methods first, and pesticide use is considered a last resort. In the case of mosquito abatement, the least toxic methods of control would be to rid a property of sources of standing water, use agitators in bird baths and ponds, change water frequently in small pools, bird baths, and such. The next step would be to use larval control, say in the form of mosquito dunks. Mosquito dunks use a bacterium called BTI, and they actually prevent mosquito larvae from forming in a water body. So those can be used in box gutters, anywhere water pools naturally for more than a couple of days, and are even safe for bird baths because, again, this bacterium only targets mosquito larvae. With a healthy urban ecosystem in place, there are thousands of insects, many kinds of birds, and even bats, which prey upon mosquitoes in their adult form. Combined, these common sense and inexpensive methods of controlling mosquitoes should be enough to quell any infestation. Using mosquito spray companies to treat one's property is like using the proverbial hammer to swat a fly, or in this case, mosquito. Mosquito sprays target adult mosquitoes, not larvae, and the chemical must actually land on the mosquito to kill it. Scientific research has found that the efficacy of this way of controlling mosquito population to be anywhere from 1/100th to 1/10,000th of a percent. The method of dispersal used by mosquito spraying companies is a blower-type contraption that blasts the pesticide into the air. According to Ohio pesticide law, it is illegal to spray or even inadvertently contaminate a neighboring property, but this can hardly be avoided using such a method of dispersal, even in 0-mile-per-hour wind conditions. It's illegal to spray blooming plants, children's play equipment, and water sources. Yet, I have witnessed all of these happen in my own neighborhood. Pesticides used by these companies stick to vegetation and remain there for weeks, subjecting pets to the toxins as well as any wildlife that consumes the vegetation and any wildlife that consumes them, and so on and so on. These pesticides enter the urban ecosystem's food web, killing pollinators and other beneficial insects, and about 95% of insects are considered beneficial, and anything that preys on those insects, like squirrels, lizards, anything like that. The EPA even acknowledges that the chemicals used for by mosquito spray companies kill or damage the nervous systems of beneficial insects, including pollinators, fireflies, and ladybugs. These companies may claim their products are natural or organic, but natural and organic substances can also be toxic. Natural and organic are simply buzzwords used by pesticide applicators and manufacturers to dupe consumers into thinking their products are safe. They are not. The chemicals the spray companies use are also classified as human neuropoisons. Mosquito spray companies also spray when mosquitoes are not even present.
A spray service treated a property near me in April and May of this year when temperatures were far too cold for mosquitoes. They also sprayed last October and November under similar cold conditions. They are dumping poisons into the environment for no other reason than to make a buck. They claim they protect pollinators, but the science doesn't lie. The pesticides do kill, not mosquitoes, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Next request to address council is Sandy Prentice.
Good evening, I'm Sandy Prannell. I reside at 4008 Ellesmere, and I'm here in support of an ordinance banning mosquito spraying within the city. Pyrethroids are the focus of my concern this evening. I've been subject to and sickened by the indiscriminate and illegal spraying of chemical fogs by a local mosquito company. The company had been contracted to provide services by the residents of a nearby property. On April 13, 2020, the technician, in addition to illegally entering my property, fogged the target property during wind gusts of 40 to 50 miles per hour, which was documented by the local news. I was exposed to chemicals and experienced nausea, headache, numbness on my face and arms, neuromuscular weakness that lasted approximately 5 days. One of my dogs demonstrated lethargy and decreased appetite for 3 days after the exposure. I have numerous research articles in both human and veterinary publications that document the damaging effects of pyrethroids. At this time, I was not aware that recourse was available through the Ohio Department of Agriculture. The next application was done on May 4, 2020. Once again, my property was illegally entered, sprayed, and the fogging occurred during wind gusts. I again experienced symptoms despite retreating into my house as quickly as possible when I heard the drone of the fogger. I was able to get my dogs inside in time to protect them from exposure. I filed a complaint with the Ohio Department of Agriculture. This company was found to be in violation of ORC section 921.24, using a pesticide inconsistently with its label directions for use. I also have a copy of the warning letter if you would like to review it. Additionally, I have a copy of a complaint made against the company by an employee stating that ODA laws are not followed by this company, specifically the use of unlabeled chemical containers. This is illegal, and I have a copy of that documentation. The marketing strategy used by this company that they're using natural insecticides that are therefore harmless is ludicrous. Hemlock, arsenic, cyanide, and mercury are all natural and are deadly. I'm aware that the company is not using these elements, but I wish to make the point that anything applied to a lawn eventually ends up in runoff into the river, contaminating our drinking water, and sabotaging the efforts of those attempting to employ organic gardening, as water treatment procedures do not filter out insecticides. My intention is to be a good steward of the earth and her inhabitants, thus preserving the balance of nature's ecosystem. Killing insects affects our food chain. Our food chain begins with soil bacteria, insects, and birds. They are our pollinators. Birds and bats eat mosquitoes. Many species of insects are collateral damage and face possible extirpation or extinction by the chemicals used by companies such as this one. Kill the insects and you will kill the birds that eat them. The natural order of checks and balances in nature's way of preserving an ecosystem is lost or damaged. Given the plethora of available research documenting the danger associated with the use of insecticides, the international initiatives to ban pyrethroids and other chemicals, coupled with this company's history of disregard for the law and the rights of property owners who wish to preserve a chemical-free environment, it follows that a ban of such chemicals is called for. During this time of Norwood's renaissance, I feel that this is a timely initiative. Norwood could market itself as an environmentally conscious community committed to the health of our residents, human and non, and preserve the balance of the ecosystem that nature intended. Thank you.
Thank you. Next request to address council is Stacy Shearing.
I'm Stacy Shearing. I live at 2412 Madison Avenue. I've been here for 17 years and absolutely love the wonderful neighborhood we live in. One of the requests, as I'd heard from Renee, and also just to look at how we're using the insecticides, actually release anywhere from 40 to 120 butterflies, monarch butterflies each year in our garden. Our neighbor decided to have a company come out to spray, and unfortunately, all of our butterflies were killed that year. So for them to say that they don't kill anything but the mosquitoes, I'd probably say that if 1 or 2 died, that might be okay, but when you have 80 of them dead inside a tent a couple days afterwards, you kind of have to put those 2 and 2 together. So I just hope that you'll think about what we're spraying into our environment. Any pesticide like that doesn't know the difference between a mosquito, a child. Unfortunately, what's happened to our dear neighbor here, that's just one of the things that could happen, and just to think about what that would be like, you know, if it happened and sprayed around when a school was out on a playground, that could be a catastrophe. So I just really hope that you think about that. I wish people thought more about birds and whatnot, clearly how we're all reacting to the cicadas. That might not be on the top of people's list, but you can even look at how people are spraying the cicadas right now. There's a place called Second Wildlife, and they're getting tons of reports of birds that are coming in unhealthy because they're eating the cicadas after being sprayed with these types of pesticides. So you can just watch what happens every 17 years and what is happening to the wildlife around us. So I would hope that the statements here, you'd be able to take a look at what are we using. About 15 years, we actually started having a mosquito problem in our backyard, and we tried some different things, and nothing was really working. We actually installed bat boxes. So that has been the lifesaver of our mosquito area in the back. We get anywhere from 12 to 14 inches of standing water when we have the big storms that come here. But those 2 bats that live in our backyard now, they go around about dusk, they come out, and it's amazing to just watch the difference of once they come out and what they're able to do in our backyard. And that's just 1 bat box in 1 backyard. So if we spend that money to do something proactive and actually use their natural predators, as opposed to spraying something that can hurt ourselves, our neighbors, our pets, and our children, I think that would be a better use of people's money and time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next request to address council is Pastor Sonny James.
Good evening, Pastor Sonny James, 1830 Hopkins Avenue, Norwood, Ohio. First, let me send out prayer requests for all the communities across the country that are beginning to extend their social distancing requirements and opening back up our country. I was challenged recently after I had spoke at the last time I spoke here, and a resident came to my home and said, well, Pastor, you made a comment, and it's kind of true, but it's kind of not. And so if you're a man of character, I think you'll go sit back and you'll address it. I said that I've never asked for money from this city, and that's not totally true. I have asked for money from this city on multiple occasions. But with clarity, I've never asked for any money for me, my family, or anything of that nature. I have asked the city years ago to support recreation and things of that nature. Give you a perfect example. Years ago, we had an MMA event at our high school. Many of you may remember that. But when we offered to bring professional boxing into Norwood, we were stonewalled and said, well, you have to have insurance. Well, come on. Common sense, right? Every professional event, you have to have insurance. So those are just some of the things that I wanted to clarify because as long as it's going to help our youth and our children, I am going to ask. The second thing I want to say is I'm excited. Recently, we had a group of our council members come together to form a chronic nuisance board. And I want to publicly commend them on all the work that they put into that. And even though my son wasn't selected, I was very honored to see residents come together and just do what's right. Pick people that are good for our community. And I applaud you all. I applaud the committees that handle that. And I thank you very much. Because as long as I stand before you, you've heard me say, build it black, many, many times, and you're going to continue to hear me say that. I'm especially proud because this coming fall, we'll have our very first African-American athletic director in our schools, right here in Norwood. That is blowing the minds of many people, and I applaud that. I also want to say to the many residents how I apologize for you to feel like your property is devalued and your residents are not appreciated and all of that. That saddens me, because contrary to popular opinion, it's not just about black with me. It's about human nature. It's about people. At the same time, our community is becoming more and more diverse. I understand the mayor put together a task force of individuals, but I certainly would like to sit down with those folks, because the reality is, and just look at what happened the other day at Kings Island. There's a new energy, folks. There's a new energy. And we can't just complain about it and not really know how to address it. From what I understand, the only person that was really injured at the Kings Island event was a police officer. My son hopes to serve in this fine community one day in law enforcement. And I would hate for the decisions that we make as leaders to make it more difficult for him to just do his job and make it less safe. The residents and leaders, I want to tell you, with diversity comes a certain level of sensitivity and understanding. You can't just complain because you don't understand it. I love the fact that now I'm prayerfully going to be a part of helping our city build a diversion process. When you address these issues, why not go to the people that really could help you? I just talked to a dear old friend of mine, Tyler Alsip. I love that young man. He and my sons competed together, participated together. I go to battle with him. But why not bring people that you have, Mr. Mayor, to what you're trying to do, that have the ability and the skill set and know how to do it? The final thing is, for the task force and the Friday on the lawn, that's great. But Mr. Mayor, Elevations presented that to you months ago. And now we all of a sudden are going to celebrate with movies? It's these type things that we do right in the face of African Americans that make them angry and say, how is it that you didn't support our initiative? But now all of a sudden, we stand publicly and say, Friday on the lawn, and we're going to have movies. Guys, come on. Let's do a better job of supporting everybody. Black, white, whatever. And just because we bring African Americans to a task force, it's nice when you bring people that don't know the history. They're just excited to be a part. We can do better. I pray we will. God bless you all.
Thank you. Moving on to item I, reports of standing committees of council. Mr. Geraci had asked that we remove these just prior to the meeting, and I missed that. So we table it till move to.
Make a motion to remove.
Okay. Can I have a motion to remove it from the agenda? Mr. Thompson?
Yeah, I'll move that we remove these reports.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Geraci?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Item J1, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $8 million of urban renewal refunding revenue bonds, Series 2021, Linden Point Project of the City of Norwood, Ohio, pursuant to Chapter 725 of the Ohio Revised Code to secure bonds to be issued by the Port of Greater Cincinnati Development Authority for the purpose of refinancing outstanding obligations of the city issued to finance and refinance the cost of certain public improvements, authorizing the pledge of certain service payments to secure such bonds of the city and Port Authority, authorizing cooperation with the Port of Greater Cincinnati Development Authority to facilitate the refinancing, authorizing and approving related matters, and declaring an emergency. Mr. DiNardo.
I'd like to make a motion to remove this from the agenda and table the ordinance.
Motion by Mr. DiNardo to table this ordinance.
Yes, please.
Mr. Braden? Second by Mr. Braden. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
All members present voting aye. Motion passes.
Not on my game today. Sorry, guys.
Moving on to item K, second reading of ordinances and resolutions. Item K1, ordinance repealing ordinance number 2-2011, which was adopted, section 151.02, titled Application Fees of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Norwood, Ohio, and declared an emergency. Mr. Geraci.
Make a motion to have a second reading of this. I'm still doing research.
Motion by Mr. Geraci to have the second reading. May I have a second? Mr. Kelch? Second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present. Motion passes. Moving on. Go ahead.
Ordinance repealing ordinance number 2-2011, which had adopted section 151.02, titled Application Fees of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Norwood, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Moving on to item L, introductory reading of ordinance and resolutions. L1, ordinance approving a zone change from the heavy manufacturing M2 use classification zoning district to the general business district GBD use classification zoning district for the parcels identified by the Hamilton County Auditor as 2699 Edmondson Road, parcel 651-0041-0115-00 and 651-0041-0381-00. Mr. Braden.
Motion, we had first reading.
Motion by Mr. Braden to have the first reading. May I have a second? Mr. Thompson?
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. May we have the first reading?
Ordinance approving a zone change from the heavy manufacturing M2 use classification zoning district to the general business district GBD use classification zoning district for the parcels identified by the Hamilton County Auditor as 2699 Edmondson Road, parcels 651-0041-0115-00 and 651-0041-0381-00.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Moving on to item L2. Ordinance approving a zone change from the heavy manufacturing M2 use classification zoning district to the general business district GBD use classification zoning district for the parcel identified by the Hamilton County Auditor as 2692 Madison Road, parcel 651-0041-0028-00. Mr. Geraci.
I'd like to make a motion to have first reading.
Motion by Mr. Geraci to have the first reading. Mr. DiNardo?
I would second that, please.
Second by Mr. DiNardo. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. May we have the first reading?
Ordinance approving a zone change from the heavy manufacturing M2 use classification zoning district to the general business district GBD use classification zoning district for the parcel identified by Hamilton County Auditor as 2692 Madison Road, parcel 651-0041-0228-00.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Moving on to item L3, resolution objecting to the renewal of the liquor permit number 8608477 of Sonny's Pub and Grill, LLC, doing business as Sonny's Pub and Grill, 5400 Carthage Avenue, Norwood, Ohio, 45212, and directing that a copy of the resolution be sent to the State of Ohio Division of Liquor Control and requesting a hearing in Cincinnati, Ohio. Mr. DiNardo.
Before I make a motion, may I ask a question of the law director?
Mr. Moore.
Sure. I had two questions. One, about the effectiveness of the resolution, and two, kind of a procedural item. So the first is, it sounds like Norwood has kind of faced this before, years ago, and with 55 noise complaints, I heard a gunshot report, with those sort of kind of very heavy reports being made, will this resolution, will it effectively influence the state of Ohio to potentially not renew the license?
Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, this is the first step. This is what a city has to do to say, no, we don't want it to be renewed. We have good reasons, and they will schedule a hearing, and we'll go, if you get past it, and we'll go down and we'll present evidence. We'll, bring police officers, probably some neighbors, there's some videotape of some things. And so that's the process to have a liquor permit pulled. There are other ways to go through the state to file complaints directly with the Department of Liquor Control, but they, I've heard it said that, I've heard it quoted, members of the state board, that we're not in the business of putting liquor permit holders out of business. So it can be a difficult thing. It took a couple, 3 tries, I think, with Soupy's to finally get the Liquor Control Board to say, no, we're not going to renew this. So, but we have some, there's tax issues. There have been a lot of problems, and they have been, they've been around since the place, almost since the place opened, and so under the new management. And I will say that, I covered Mayor's Court on Monday, and there's 3 disturbing the peace charges mentioned in the resolution. There was another one that was filed against him over the weekend. And so there's 4. The magistrate transferred those down to Hamilton County Municipal Court. So all of those are now down there. And I expect I would not be surprised if there were more charges that weren't filed. So between now and whenever they do get around to scheduling a hearing, that's the time that the law department and the police department will work on building as much evidence as we can to say that this does not, this is not working. They've abused their privilege to have a license.
Thank you for that. I have a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
And then secondly, with only 5 of the members here, if we were to have all 3 readings, would we be able to pass the resolution with only 5 votes?
No. Mr. Moore?
You need 6 to suspend the rules and have all 3 readings. So you can't have more than 1 reading tonight. So in order to get this done in time for the deadline, which is June 1st, is it, I think, or...
I believe that's correct.
End of this week, council would, if they want to pass this in time, council would need to have some special meetings between now and the end of the week.
And then what would happen if we miss the June 1st? Is there an appeals or anything like that? It would just wait till the next year?
You essentially wait till next year.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all my questions.
Mr. Nardo, did you make a motion? I'm sorry.
I did not. I just wanted to ask this question.
Mr. Kelch?
Make a motion we have the first reading tonight.
Motion by Mr. Kelch to have the first reading. Mr. Dracy?
Second the motion.
Second the motion. Any further discussion? Mr. Kelch?
If I could, through the chair to the law director, you stated that it seems like you stated it's kind of useless to make complaints since they say, hey, we're not here to put people out of business. But have we as a city made those complaints anyway or filed those grievances anyway?
Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. President. There have been contacts with the state, State Liquor Board or Control. I'm really bad at official names of bodies anymore. I've just kind of lost that ability. But there have been some made, and they will, they've got a lot of ground to cover for the whole state. And so it's just not, this one little bar is not really the highest priority for them. I know that there are establishments, especially when you get into, Cleveland, Columbus, Toledo, and Cincinnati, that have really dangerous situations going on, and they have to deal with those. They have to deal with everybody's paperwork and all the rest of it. It can. I mean, it's one more. As far as I'm concerned, everything we can do is one more thing to tack on. Partly to move on this, and partly if we get, after enough court dates for noise ordinances, for, enough patrons get parking tickets for blocking people's driveways, enough people get pulled over, enough, litter citations, whatever that is, every step, and it's just like any other nuisance kind of issue, every step you take is that one more thing that may be the tipping point, whether it's to get a license pulled or to get them to sell or to get them, okay, finally we're going to give up and quit, or people just stop coming there, because I'm tired of getting a parking ticket every time I come because I can't find a place to park. So as far as I'm concerned, every step we can take, every phone call, every effort makes a difference.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you clarify the motion on the floor, please?
The motion on the floor, we had a motion by Mr. Kelch, a second by Mr. Geraci, had to have the first reading of the resolution.
Okay. I thought it was on the understanding that we needed to have all 3 readings, and in order to do so, we needed to have 6 or 7. So, okay.
You need to have 6.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yeah. In addition to trying to move forward to get this resolution passed, are there other things that we as a city, the administration, the fire department, the police department can be doing? I find it kind of crazy that they lock the doors. Wouldn't the police just stay there until you can't just lock the door to a police officer, I didn't think. Like, how can, you can? That seems nuts, and I'm just wondering if you could respond to what else we could be doing in addition to this, just from the fire chief, the police chief. That's kind of wild to me.
Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. President. In theory, a business they're required to allow, under state law, they're required to allow law enforcement in to make sure that people are in compliance with whatever there's more restrictions on a liquor permit holder than there would be for other businesses. And yeah, you can just, I'm gonna lock the doors. And the same for a restaurant can lock the door to the health inspector, and the process then is you go and get an administrative warrant. So there are, quite honestly, you could put, if you wanted to, you could put 20 police officers down there if we had them. You know what I mean? To every time a loud car drives by, to make sure we give them a ticket. Every time somebody's speeding, we make sure we give them a ticket. Every time somebody parks, 13 inches from the curb, we give them a ticket. There's things you can do. It's a question of priorities and who's available and at what time. And I think the police have kind of picked it up since the COVID and the hours have kind of opened up more. They've certainly been more present over there. And with the new traffic team, I know some of those officers have been writing a lot more tickets over there. And so it's that kind of thing. And I'll be honest, my first term on council, the big issue was Xavier students, and it continues to be, but I always look at it the same approach. It's like you just got to raise the awareness. No, this is not tolerated. This is not tolerated. And sometimes it's 1 step forward and 2 steps back, and then 3 forward and 2 back, but you just keep going as best you can and not just let it slide. So, and I think the police department, the building department, the city administration, I know is this is a problem that needs to be addressed.
That's really good to hear. Thank you both.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Kelch.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm struggling a little bit trying to figure out how this is coming to us so last minute. I know this is an issue that I've heard quite a bit about, and I've steered people that have reached out to me in the right channels. And I'm just kind of curious how this is coming to us at a time where we now kind of are forced, we have to have a special meeting. And we're going to do that because this is something that needs to be handled. But why is this not coming to us much sooner, knowing that this time is coming to where we can renew or not renew liquor license? We know it's a problem property. I've personally witnessed things outside this establishment that are pretty nerve-wracking. I think that we all need to really kind of do a better job of representing the residents and enforcing some of the ordinances that we have on the books, much like the nuisance ordinances we had previously, the new nuisance property ordinance, and things that we have on the books to really hammer this stuff home. We cannot be easy on this kind of thing. We have to be firm but fair for the ordinance and rules we have. And I think that's, a top-down thing, and all of us included to ensure that those things are being met. These ordinances that we have are being enforced. Health department policies, building department policies, police and fire policies, we have to make sure these things are being done the right way. And I believe if we do that with the stuff we now have on the books, that we can maybe not stop this kind of thing, but we can really hinder it from happening to where we're not in this kind of situation where we're having to scramble last minute to try to submit paperwork to not allow a liquor license to be renewed. I think that's a little egregious, in my opinion, for these residents that came. And I want to thank these residents that did come. And this sounds like it's not the first time you guys have been dealing with this. And I don't think I was here when that was going on, but I want to apologize if this has been handled. I don't think it's anybody here's fault, but, you know, we want to make sure that you guys get help with this, and that's what we're going to do.
Thank you, Mr. Kels. Mr. Moore, you had it.
Thank you, Mr. President. In regards to why this is kind of last minute, every year, and I honestly don't remember if the state, if because of COVID, the state sent the letter last year, but every summer they send, or late spring, they send a letter saying, are there any current permit holders in your jurisdiction that you want to file an objection to? That was in your packets the Friday before the last council meeting. I didn't look at my packet, I'll be honest. I mean, I looked at the ordinances that were in front of you, but as far as the correspondence, you know, I don't always look at that, but before the meeting, and I didn't until that night. I was looking at her that day, and I'm like, oh, I knew this was coming. We were going to get ready to do a resolution and so, you know, if I had known when the letter hit, then we could have had the resolution for the last council meeting, but I didn't realize it till that day. I don't remember, honestly, I don't remember if the state sent one last year or if COVID kind of suspended it, but under normal proceedings, it would have come to council, again, I think it's like May every single year. Are there any liquor permits that you have an objection to renewing? This one, but that's really it. I didn't catch it until it was too late to draft a resolution and get together everything we needed for it for the last council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Tracy.
A couple things. I want to thank, just like Chris and probably the rest of council, for the residents that came out and spoke about Stoney's. I've had several complaints myself. I'm sure everybody has. And if we go back to look at January 1st of 2020, one of the things I stated at the very first meeting was I hate last-minute items. We need to do a better job of not getting things last minute and bringing things to the table that are extremely important. This, in case this, oh geez, is an extremely important item that shouldn't have been brought last minute. You know, we know that this is coming up every spring. We should have been looking into this prior to it being on the last meeting. Not saying it's your fault or anything. I know you guys are extremely busy over there. But we need to figure out a system to not bring things last minute. Second, through the chair to Mr. Braden, the reason we're doing one reading tonight is because we only have 5 members. We can't pass this on 3 readings with anything less than 6. So we have to hold a special meeting since we only have 5 of us here. That's what we're doing, just so it might be a little more clear.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy. Anyone else? We have a motion by Mr. Kelch, second by Mr. Geraci to have the first reading. Please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci?
Yes.
Mr. Kelch?
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Braden?
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye. The motion passes. May we have the first reading?
Resolution objecting to the renewal of the liquor permit number 8608477 of Stoney's Pub and Grill, LLC, DBA Stoney's Pub and Grill, 5400 Carthage Avenue, Norwood, Hamilton County, Ohio, 45212, and directing that a copy of the resolution be sent to the State of Ohio Division of Liquor Control and requesting a hearing in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Moving on to item M, administrative reports. Mayor Schneider.
Thank you. There are a few things going on in the city right now. There's a lot of paving going on and work up in the north end. We are working on finalizing all the plans for some paving around the Sharpsburg area, Forest Avenue, and Robertson. Talking about the community development block grant funds that are being worked on right now for the city. We've got sidewalk improvements, some safety matching programs for that in some of the lower income areas that we're working on. ADA curb replacements are going on. I know the Public Works Department, the superintendent has been working with contractors on a lot of different curbing projects. So there's a considerable amount of work being done out in the community, and there'll be much more completed as we work through the year. We had hoped to actually finalize and finish up the restriping of all the traffic markings on Montgomery Road, but there's a paint shortage and we're having problems with that. I do think that some of the paint has came in, so we might see that move forward soon. You might recall that we repainted the double yellow lines on Montgomery Road. We're also looking at doing some grinding and some repairs on our main thoroughfare. So hopefully we'll clean that up and get it dressed up soon. We've repaved the City Hall parking lot area, and we've been working on council chambers a little bit. There have been some different meetings within council chambers to look at some improvements. One of the improvements is overlaying some of that Luan, some of the old wood, Luan wood that's there to upgrade the look of council chambers. There are some pros and cons to that. That wood, you'd like to think that that's a big, it's all mahogany and it's beautiful, but really it's a 1950s Luan overlay over a frame, and not really what you would think is just incredibly beautiful. But there is some appeal to it historically, so there's some discussion on what we should be doing there. And we're redoing the media room in the back, and we've cleaned out some areas back there. So, and then we're working on the windows for City Hall, the next phase of windows to go in there too. We continue the planning on the streets. All of you should have received an email with the street survey information, so we continue to work on trying to finalize that stuff, and then we'll bring that to council committee as we get a little bit closer on there to make sure that we're in good shape for next year, and we'll look for some guidance and just tweaking it to make sure that we're on the right track. Let's see, the emergency operations plan is in going on. There was discussion or questions about the CARES Act funding, the Infrastructure CARES Act funding, and what we will put that money towards. And I went through my list and took off 3 or 4 different things that I found out couldn't be covered under it. One of the things that absolutely can be covered under it is our water meter replacement. So we've had a couple of different meetings. We're looking at different suppliers that can do that work, and then the project management part of it we're looking at also, because we're going to be going into people's homes to make these changes. One of the things it's important to think about with this water system is, water that's not registered through an inefficient meter costs all of us, and ultimately the meters that aren't being read properly is a challenge. Some systems, they'll say, well, we have a 7 to 8% loss in water, so that's water that's running down the drain that we really don't receive any reimbursement for, right? So the city pays for all the water from the city of Norwood, pays for all the water from the city of Cincinnati's water supply system. We pay through master meter pits, and then when it goes to your home, it goes through that small meter, and you pay for your amount of water that you've used. But if that water meter is not working properly, then you're not paying for the amount of water that you're using, but others are paying for that. So we're trying to improve the efficiencies of that system. One of the things that this infrastructure, the CARES Act infrastructure money can be used for is a project like this, where we put in the radio read system. And a radio read system and a radio read water meter means that if you do have a leak at your home and it's measuring through that water meter, we can look at that on almost an hourly basis to say this is where your problems are. One of the biggest public relations problems the city has is our water department. You guys all know that. And you've all told me we've got to get this fixed. We've got to figure out how our water system is running. We've got to make sure that we're taking care of it. We've all heard stories of somebody that said, I had a $600 water meter or water bill when it should have been $150, and I wasn't even there half the month. So we've got to get those things in place or get that fixed. And this is a big part of getting that black eye for the city straightened out. So we can use some of that, but that's an expensive upgrade to our water system. It's about $1.8 million of that CARES Act money that we would utilize for that system. But it's necessary, and it's been needed for years. So we're going to continue working to move forward on that. We are meeting with project managers. We're meeting with different people to do that. And then one of the other things that we can use this CARES Act money for, and we've already started doing that, is a lot of the communication tools. So Norcom, we put Norcom in place. We've got the technology that we're starting to purchase now, some of the software systems, so mass notification software. Systems that, quite frankly, we didn't have when COVID struck, when we really needed to be sending out mass notifications to people. We really didn't have the ability to do that. So looking at some of those things, and then even with our new recreation, you guys have committed to improving and making sure our recreation and making sure the amenities that we provide in our community are up, that they're on par with other communities around here. I mean, it's a big part of retaining the people that we have, retaining the families, retaining people in the city. So having good amenities is an important part of it, and we're committed to doing that. We're committed to improving our parks, and we're committed to events and making sure that ours is as good as any, if not better. A big part of this, we can use some of this technology or some of this money for software systems. So if you are going to rent a park, you don't actually have to come into City Hall, stand in front of somebody, fill out a form, do everything. You can do it all I'll say touchless. So those are other areas that we can spend that money. But quite frankly, it's a lot of money, and we're looking at ways to utilize those funds in a productive manner that doesn't put us behind the 8 ball in the future. And when I say that, what I mean is, if you take grant funding and you implement something that takes a lot of money to maintain in the future years, but you went ahead and did it right now with this big, oh yeah, we got all this free money. It's never free money. It's still our tax dollars. It's never free money. But if you take all this free money and you put things in place, you better be able to maintain it years down the road. And we're not a wealthy, really wealthy community, so we've got to look down the road. If we implement this now, are we willing to put $200,000 into maintaining this for the next 5 years? And so that's a challenge that is in the back of my mind the whole time, because we need sustainability. We need to put systems in place that are good and that meet the demands of our community, but we also need to look long term. How do we keep this going? And that's an important aspect as we take advantage of the free money. So what was one other thing I had? Oh, I'm sorry. The last thing I have is on Monday, May 31st is Memorial Day, and at Victory Park. Victory Park is where the Memorial Day celebration has happened for years and years and years. It is put on by the American Legion. It is at 12 noon, and if you can be there, that's great. I recognize there's a lot of people going out of town. There's a lot of other events going on, but this is a celebration, a Memorial Day celebration that's went on there for years, and if you can make it, or if you would, please share that information with your neighbors and friends and show up. It's a brief memorial, but it needs to be attended. So that's really all I had.
Thank you, Mayor Schneider. Any questions or comments for the mayor? Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you mention anything about Norwood Day Parade or the Coney Island? Is there any? The
Norwood Day Parade, I'm sorry, Mr. Braden, I'm going to cut you off. But the Norwood Day Parade is going on this year. The Chamber of Commerce is committed to putting on the parade this year. So the summer started. The swimming pool's opening up here soon. I'll say summer started. I don't know about the Coney Island. Coney Island changed a little bit. They've taken out a lot of the rides, and they're doing their business a little bit different. I would hope that we'd still have, even if it's just Norwood Day at Sunlight Pool on that day, but we'll see. I have not heard anything about that. That's the businesswomen professional organization. I haven't heard anything there. I did hear that I've already gotten a lot of calls from Linda Brim, who puts on, Christmas Town and the whole Christmas celebration, and she's gung-ho. That thing is going, no doubt. She's already asked me to commit, all of the resources that the city has put in, and the Boy Scouts and all the different organizations. So Christmas is a go-to. I mean, I know it's only May, but, plans have to be made.
Thank you, Mayor Schneider. Mr. Tracy?
Any updates on signage for entering and exiting the city.
No, we haven't worked on signage. You're talking about monument signage that we have not worked on that right now. We do have the project manager in place, and I'll put that on his top priority list. Is it, when you talk about signage, we have signage in certain areas. Are you talking about upgrading what we have, or do you have new locations that you feel we should be?
I'd like to upgrade what we have instead of just having a metal sign, something a little cleaner or elegant.
Okay.
Something that looks a little more towards where the city's kind of traveling to.
The renaissance of the city? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can get some.
I mean, even if it's just a hanging sign, because we can't put a monument like what's coming off of 71 and Williams. You know, even if it's something hanging.
Okay. I know that was refurbished last year, but it's probably due for an upgrade too. So, yeah. Yes, I can make that more of a priority. Probably at this time frame, with all the stuff, you're probably looking at, it would be fall installation, but we've got to put plans in place. So
Right, correct. That's why I wanted to try and start it a little early.
Mr. Counsel. Thank you, Mr. President. I might be wrong here, so forgive me if I am, but have we looked into if any of this CARES Act infrastructure money could be used for the Elm Avenue storm sewer projects? Is that a thing that can happen, has been considered?
I did look into that, and it cannot be used for that type of project. But we do have funds in place, and that's something that engineering needs to work on. I'd mentioned we've interviewed some project managers, or we're starting to interview some project managers for that water meter replacement program. That would be another project for that person to be involved in. So potentially, we can get both of those under the same sort of scope, and I've asked for them to give me really, it's not really a request for a proposal, but it is a request for a proposal from them, from the project managers, on what we're trying to accomplish and how we, and they have, one of the people that I talked to has some experience working on projects like that, where they had to go through the community and actually survey and talk to the community members that it was going to be affecting their property. So we'll see.
Thank you, Mr. Counsel. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I don't want to overstep. I'm getting messages that says, I guess someone is hearing this conversation, and that says that Coney, they wanted me to announce that Coney Day is on the 28th. Baby show, bingo, and combination raffle. It's $15 for adults and $10 for kids, and it's from 2 to 7. So I am getting, I don't know if that's...
We'll take that under administrative reports, although that would be new business, John. I mean, Mr. Brady.
I just wanted to get that out there. Thanks. Sorry, buddy.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mayor Schneider.
Thank you.
Moving on to item N, unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business this evening? No? We'll move on to new business. Mr. Tracy.
A couple things. Through the chair to Law Director. Are we able to call that special meeting tonight?
We need 24 hours notice, and I spoke to Mr. Miracle this afternoon, and I didn't know, and he was going to call the clerk's office to see if we could get notice out for tomorrow.
Yeah, we can't do it tomorrow evening, but I was going to schedule it for Thursday, and we could also set one up for Friday, and we can always cancel that if we don't need it.
I was going to ask for Friday at least.
We'd have Thursday and Friday. I think you'd probably do an earlier time. We could get that out first thing in the morning. Mr. Donner?
Yeah. So we're trying to mildly coordinate with just, and it's difficult because we have to do everything publicly. And one thing that I didn't get a firm answer for is, for this purpose, just this resolution, would we be able to schedule a Zoom meeting? And I'd really like for us to try to push for it, given that I think there was a lot of conflicts going on between now and Friday evening.
I'll defer to Mr. Moore about a Zoom meeting.
Off the top of my head, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Why don't we just do it? And
I don't know what the rules are. In theory, we can. I'm not sure what steps we would have to take to get to that point, if it is a violation of council rules or, what Pace can put together, NCT can put together to be able to, for allow us to manage that between now and tomorrow or Thursday. So.
I think we discussed this once before,
We
and
did.
we had some difficulties with that, with working with NCT.
If I may, I think one of the biggest issues was the general public has to be able to comment. And I know that you and I talked about this, Mr. Moore, and we couldn't quite figure out a way to be able to do that with a Zoom meeting. So I'm sure there's technology out there, but we weren't, when we discussed this before, we weren't aware of what it was.
Mr. Kelch?
Well, again, I might be wrong, but during a special council meeting, there is no comment from the public. It's just specifically about that agenda item.
I mean, as long as they look, as long as they can view it. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if we recorded the meeting and then posted it later, I think would be our safest bet, but again, that's Mr. Moore's field, not mine.
Off the top of my head, I don't know as far as the Zoom meeting, and I honestly, I have not. We talked, maybe Pace could be able to set something up for us that would allow us to do the things we want to do, but that's as far as the discussions ever got, so I can't guarantee that it's going to work. And I would suspect if there was any iffiness in this one, this is the kind of thing that will be challenged.
Yeah, we don't want to make a mistake here. Yeah.
Right, because this is the kind of thing where the idea is, you're trying to take away my business. So, yeah, that's a motivation to challenge any steps we might make.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. And to Mr. Kelch's point, special meeting, it's just going to be one item. There's no hearing of the public. I can't imagine taking...
We'd have a meeting at 7 and a meeting at 7:30.
I don't know if you can...
You can only do
that.
one.
I think we can do the same
But
day.
we did that. We've done that before. Because it's noticed.
Well,
Why would you need two, though? You've already had one reading. Wouldn't you just need one meeting?
we will have 6 at the next meeting.
Sorry.
Well, there you go. Then don't even check. Don't waste any time.
Yeah, if you have 6, then you got 10, it takes 10 minutes, you're in it.
Mr. Tracy?
That's kind of why I asked for at least Friday. I'm not going to be around Thursday, but it gives it that longer than 24-hour notice if we can get it out tomorrow. So
you're saying you can't meet Thursday?
I cannot be here Thursday.
Okay.
Can't be here Friday.
I can't
But-
do Thursday.
I don't know what's going to happen, but if we can only have one reading on
That's why I
Friday,
was
then you're...
asking for Friday, because then we can just knock the 2 readings out if everybody can be here Friday for a 5-minute vote.
We can do whatever you gentlemen...
Thursday's not the greatest for me.
Friday.
Oh, we have Friday?
Early.
You can't do Friday.
Friday
We can't do Friday.
You can't do Friday?
No.
Either of you?
I can for a window, but it sounds like no.
A Thursday with 5 and a Friday with 5.
Or with 4.
Or with 4.
Right.
I could put it out as special meeting Thursday and a special meeting Friday. I think that would...
That's the only way to cover the bases.
The only way to cover, yeah.
What's the aim?
I'm sorry.
What's the aim if we know that it's going to have less than 6?
To have one reading. So we have one meeting for one reading and another meeting for the final reading and the vote.
But don't you need 6 people for the vote?
Nope, you only need to pass it with 4.
4.
Okay.
You only need to have 6 to have all 3.
But you have to have the, you can't, if you don't have 6 people, you can't have the multiple readings. So you got to spread up the readings over multiple meetings.
Totally get it. Thank you. That makes perfect sense.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. So that's what we'll do. We'll put that out tomorrow morning.
That's awesome.
Any other new business? Ms. Kelch?
Thank you. I do have a couple items that I want to put out that Ms. Stevenson sent me an email earlier to see if I'd put this out. ASAP Norwood is a community coalition, and all youth and adults are invited to attend their quarterly coalition meeting on June 2nd from 3:30 to 5 p.m. Details and registration link can be found on the ASAP Norwood Facebook page. At the end of the virtual meeting on June 2nd, the coalition will post a community survey on their Facebook page and ask that residents complete it by June 16th, and their goal is to have input from at least 10% of all Norwood residents.
Mr. Kelch, can you repeat the time on that? You said June 2nd, from what time?
Yes, it's June 2nd, 3:30 to 5 p.m.
And is that a meeting?
Yeah, it's a virtual meeting, and the link can be found on their Facebook page.
Well, thank you.
Any other new business? Mr. Geraci?
I'd like to, hopefully this can go through, make a motion to move back home to council chambers immediately.
Motion to move back
to council chambers immediately.
Like right now?
Can I just...
Sure.
I was in Mayor's Court yesterday, the air conditioning's out, and I don't know what the status is for, they were doing something, and all this, the system was turned off, and I don't know if they're working yet on the system in council chambers, or if it's a larger issue that the power was, because they were up there doing stuff. So I'm just going to recommend you not have council meetings there while the air conditioning's out. So we can do that, but I would recommend that you kind of call the meetings for here until the AC is back in, because there's nothing worse than sitting in a 3-hour council meeting with no air conditioning.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Kelch?
Could I maybe ask Matt if he would revise his motion to, as soon as we meet there?
Mr. Geraci?
Always something. COVID, air conditioning, next it'll be heat.
That's not as bad, actually.
I'll just,
on that too.
Yeah.
I'll revoke it. I'll revoke it and we can wait.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy.
Sounds good.
Any other new business? I did receive an email that Liz Mize asked me to read. It's from Sarah Lehue. It's regarding the ward council meetings starting up again. Ward community meetings are up and running again in all 4 wards after a year break due to the pandemic. The purpose of the meetings is to give community members a chance to meet their council representatives, for the council members to communicate what is happening in council, and for residents to ask questions. It's also a chance to meet other city officials and program directors and learn about the different city departments and offices, as many leaders are invited to speak at these meetings over the course of the year. The meetings are also an integral way to share community event information. Meetings will be held on the 4th Thursday of each month from 7 p.m. at the following locations. Ward 1, Lower Millcrest. Mr. Kelch, you have one, you said Thursday, this Thursday, the 27th, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Contact Sarah Lehue at, that's SARALEHEL @gmail.com. Ward 2, the next meeting, it says, meeting location has been changed to the community garden, and you can contact Alicia Locke, which is LISHALOCH @gmail.com. Ward 3 is Donna Lake at dmlake@gmail.com, and it looks like they have written May 27th at Marsh Park, 24th at Linder Park, July 22nd at Marsh Park, and August 26th at Linder Park. And then Ward 4, Hunter Park, contact Hannah Roberts, that is ROBERTSH252 @gmail.com.
Worth noting, I did receive an invite and will be committing to attending those, just not this Thursday for the same reasons I'm not showing up to the Thursday special meeting.
Thank you, Mr.
Here at
Barney.
council.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tracy?
What day is Ward 4's?
Please?
Could you mention what day Ward 4 was?
It just says Ward 4, Hunter Park, and that the meetings are I guess all meetings are held on the 4th Thursday of each month from 7 to 8.
So that'd be the 27th, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy. Any other new business? Mr. Kelch?
If I could, I would like to refer to the Streets and Street Infrastructure Committee, discussion on future planning of street repair projects. Future planning and financing of those projects, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Kelch. Anyone else? Any further new business? Then we will move on to communications. P1, City Auditor Jim Stith regarding the April monthly financial reports email.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kelch, I didn't hear you. You were referring that to which committee?
The Street Infrastructure Committee?
Gotcha.
Mrs. Williams.
Okay. Letter dated May 13th of 2021, Norwood City Council. Dear council members, this letter is to let you know that the April monthly financial reports were emailed to each council member on May 13th, 2021. If you have not received said email, please let me know so that I can verify your email address and also get you copies of the reports. Sincerely, Kim Dallas, Account Clerk, Auditor's Office.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. DiNardo.
And we have, I would like to make a motion that we file the letter.
Motion by Mr. DiNardo to receive and file the letter. Mr. Thompson. Second by Mr. Thompson. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. Moving on to item P2, City of Cincinnati letter regarding CRA.
Letter dated May 19th, 2021, to Ms. Maria Williams, Clerk of Council, City of Norwood. Dear Ms. Williams, by requirement of the State of Ohio's Community Reinvestment Area, CRA program, this letter serves as notification to the legislative body of the City of Norwood that the City of Cincinnati is preparing to enter into a CRA tax exemption agreement with Curtis Street Investments, LLC, to house the new offices of Triversity Construction Company, LLC, a City of Norwood-based company. After the required notification time has expired, the City of Cincinnati may hold a public hearing to discuss and approve a CRA tax exemption agreement for Triversity Construction to expand and locate new employees in the City of Cincinnati. Triversity Construction Company, LLC, has approached the City of Cincinnati regarding a potential move to the city's Walnut Hills neighborhood due to the company's desire to be in closer proximity to their customer base and to operate in a larger, more functional space that provides for future expansion. If you have any questions regarding this letter, please contact Mark Von Ullman of my staff at 513-352-4549. Sincerely, Markia L. Carter.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Mr. DiNardo.
I'd like to make a motion that we receive and file this letter.
Motion by Mr. DiNardo. May I have a second? Mr. Thompson?
Yep.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, motion passes. Item Q, excuse absent members. Mr. DiNardo.
I'd like to make a motion that we excuse 2 absent members.
Motion by Mr. DiNardo. May I have a second? Mr. Kelch.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, the motion passes. May I have a motion for adjournment? Mr. DiNardo.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
May I have a second? Mr. Kelch.
Second.
Mrs. Williams, please call the roll.
Mr. Geraci.
Yes.
Mr. Kelch.
Yes.
Mr. DiNardo.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Braden.
Yes, ma'am.
All members present voting aye, we are adjourned.